Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So this isn't going to be like an insanely long review or anything. So this movie is actually like a childhood favorite that I grew up with. I kind of wanted an excuse to watch it again, but I feel like it has sort of the October vibes I'm looking for. I did just add a bunch of like kind of Halloween sort of movies or like horror movies and stuff to my Peacock list that I'm going to get through. So there's going to probably be a bunch of like reviews I'm doing this month. I'll probably post them all at like midnight or like 11 p.m. or something though, because I know there's going to be like games I'll be playing that'll be like posted at like the 10 a.m. usual that I have. But yeah, this one, I have it on DVD. I just kind of wanted the excuse to watch it, but it has, because it's about like psychic kids, not actually anything to do with witches. They get accused of being witches though. And there isn't really a mountain even until the end, so the title's kind of funny. Yeah, it's weird with this one because like I've had it on DVD since I was little. I don't even know where the DVD came from either, so I grew up watching this one. So I have like mostly a lot of nostalgia for it, which has probably made it better to watch because this one isn't like amazing or anything, but I have a soft spot for it. I also have the DVD for the sequel as well, which I think is from like the 80s or something, which has the same actors, which is kind of nice, but they're like teens. I haven't watched that one in years. I think I watched it maybe like once. I feel like maybe I probably wouldn't like it as much because I'm not as familiar with it. I don't know. I've heard that Christopher Lee is in it. He's usually like a good villain and stuff. Maybe I'll give it a watch. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm glad I at least rewatched this one because this one is like a series. I don't know if it's just this and the sequel, but I was looking at Letterboxd. I found a Letterboxd list that said something of like, I escaped my hangover by going to Witch Mountain, where someone made a list of all the Witch Mountain movies. There's apparently a couple of like different versions of this movie, but like not made by Disney. Like there's one from the 90s or whatever. I've heard they're kind of bad, where it's like the same storyline, because apparently this is based on a book. I didn't know that. And then it's weird growing up with this one because it's like from the 70s and kind of like a not really probably like well-known Disney, like older Disney movie or something that I wouldn't have ever have watched if I didn't have it on DVD, one of those kind of things. Or maybe I would have eventually found it on Disney Plus. I don't know. But the one I should have actually probably grown up with is the 2009 remake that had The Rock. I remember seeing it in theaters too. I think it was like one of my first movies I had like ever seen with The Rock. I don't know if that was like when he got back into acting, where it's like different kids, but it's supposed to be the same characters because it's like a remake and stuff. But it's like, you know, set in the modern day and they're like teenagers for some reason instead of kids. I think that one's kind of supposed to be more like sci-fi and stuff. I just remember the trailer for it of like The Rock's character being like this taxi driver and the kids end up in his car and he has to escort them. So it's kind of a similar like premise and stuff, but it I think skips because like the beginning of this movie is kind of slow, where they spend a lot of time at this like orphanage setting, and then they're at the house of this like billionaire that wants to use their abilities. And then kind of later on, the movie's plot really starts with them meeting this old man named Jason who helps escort them to Witch Mountain. And that's kind of definitely where the movie gets better. I do like the plot twist with it too, of it's just a little annoying that it's constantly I swear like every 5 minutes they show the same like 2-scene flashback of this piece of metal or something that's stuck in the water and the kids are like lost at sea or something. I mean, it is important because they keep, every time it shows up there's like new information that the kids remember until it's they figure out towards the end of the movie that it wasn't a boat crash, that it was a spaceship, because the whole reason they have psychic abilities is because they're aliens, which I think is kind of a cool twist, honestly. I think part of the reason I mostly remember this movie is because of the music and like the title sequence. Honestly, that's like the thing I mostly remember. I really like the design of this poster though. It kind of reminds me of like older book covers and stuff, but I think that's just how like older movie posters used to look like. And it's kind of the same art style they have for the what is it called when you're like the main menu or whatever for the movie, I think is in a really cool art style where it's kind of like a comic book art style a little bit with these images of like dogs and like spooky houses and trees and whatever. I think that's kind of cool because it is sort of it's like sci-fi, kind of light on the sci-fi, more like fantasy elements. I mean, the only fantasy elements are that they have psychic abilities and the things they do with those abilities. Other than that, it's like pretty grounded. It like takes place on Earth. The villains aren't anything like magical or whatever. It's just these like billionaires. It's weird. They live in a world though. There's not really many like female characters except for the like older ones, I mean, except for the lady that runs the orphanage. Everyone in this movie is either like a child, an animal, or like an older man, and I find that kind of funny. But yeah, the opening title sequence is pretty cool. It's part of the reason I feel like this movie has the vibe where I'm like, okay, I can get away with watching this in October and stuff, because it's like it's very simple. It's just the silhouette of the two kids running, and there's like all this imagery of like dogs or whatever, like these dogs chasing them. That's literally like the whole intro, which is funny because there is a scene with dogs, but it's incredibly short towards like the beginning of the movie, where they mention throughout the beginning of like, oh, we're able to hear these dogs or whatever, and the dogs are on screen for like 5 minutes, and then they get convinced not to chase them anymore, and that's it. You don't see the dogs again. So I'm like, why are they so heavily in this? I guess it's like the imagery of like they're being chased around or whatever, but it's more so that they're chased around by people, and if anything, all the animals end up helping them anyway. So, but it like visually, that part of it looks really cool. I think Johnny Mandel did the music. I have the opening theme to this movie, and it's like the main theme for the movie stuck in my head a lot. I think because it's a lot of like strings and stuff, it does sound a little like menacing, but I feel like it fits. Like you hear different versions of it throughout the movie. And speaking of music, there's also like a lot of harmonica stuff too, because one of the kids, the girl, has telepathy, I think it is, where you can like communicate with people's minds and stuff, and that ends up being really helpful. Like both the kids' abilities are really helpful, but the I keep wanting to say telekinesis, but that's the other ability that they have. No, the telepathy, where it's not just influencing, like it's not really used against people, it's used more against like animals they meet to convince them to help them or to leave them alone, and that's kind of cool. I wonder how the animals were treated though. I always worry about that with like older movies and stuff. And then because that's the girl's ability, her name's Tia, and then Tony the boy has telekinesis, which is also kind of cool, of being able to like move around stuff. Like one of my favorite parts when I was a kid, and it's just like a silly little bit that goes on for a bit, is he has this puppet show that he does with his abilities where the puppets move around and dance and stuff. It's kind of cute. But I do think it's interesting that for some reason, I don't know if it's just like a thing that helps him concentrate. He has to use a harmonica to be able to use his abilities, so that adds to like more music things. Sometimes he plays like the main theme of the movie, and sometimes it's just like other things or whatever. I did not remember like how much harmonica is in this movie. It gets like a little annoying after a while, but I guess it's kind of like a cool visual aid or whatever. What else? The effects of this movie have definitely not aged well. The green screen effects are really bad. The psychic ability stuff is sort of fine. Like I'm sure there was like wires and other things used for like being able to lift things in the air and whatever. I didn't really notice it too much, but I also wasn't trying to find it. There's a part at the end where there's a flying RV, and that effect is awful. Oh my gosh, because it ends up having to fly and then it ends up upside down. It looks terrible, but it's kind of goofy. And then there's a UFO at the end as well. That one actually looked alright. I swear in one shot it almost looked like a miniature. It probably was, but I mean it's an older movie. Or no, I can't really just put the blame on that, because apparently I think this came out in 1975, so it's like the same year as Jaws, and that one, you know, looked a billion times better. But then again, it's like it's Jaws. There's probably a lot of practical effects there and stuff. I mean, I don't know how much of a budget this movie had. I mean, it's a Disney movie, but assuming not that bad. I don't know. I feel like a lot of 60s, 70s Disney movies are just so like the live action ones are so weird. Not that I've seen a lot of them, mostly just this is the one I think of when I think of like older live action Disney movies. But I remember like scrolling through a lot of them on like Disney Plus or some of the ones I'd see on Hulu, and where I'm like, what even are a lot of these? I don't know, especially the ones with kids. Speaking of kids, their acting's like okay. I think everyone's acting is just kind of like all right. Like the kids are charming, they have good chemistry. It's part of the reason I don't want to watch the sequel is because they end up separated from each other the whole movie, where I think the plot is like Tony ends up working for like yet another billionaire, and Tia and this group of boys have to go rescue him, but they kind of function sort of like the Goonies. I don't know. But yeah, their chemistry is good, and I like that they have actors in here, like with the kids, they actually do look similar enough where you could, you know, actually believable that they're like siblings. But they are kind of like charming and cute. You do end up rooting for them. I think it's interesting with their abilities, because like eventually there's like a group of like people that end up wanting to hunt them down, like actually believing they're witches for their psychic abilities. And on one hand, I get it, because they're, from what you see with their abilities, they totally could be used for evil, like very easily and stuff. But like they are nice kids, and they do have to use their abilities to help like escape and get to their destination, but they try not to really like hurt anybody or whatever. Though the bear that ends up, because they end up communicating with the bear at one point to like go sit in someone's car, could have easily gone wrong. Let's see. There's a lot of wildlife shots as well. I'm kind of curious. I probably got to Google it. Where they ended up filming this movie, because I thought a lot of the locations are really cool. Like the orphanage is in this like small town. I feel like too much of the movie is kind of spent there, where the kids, it's like kind of slowly revealed they even have powers in the first place, which are mostly used to bully a bully, which I find kind of funny. But I feel like that whole section of the movie could have been shorter, and then they end up at this like seaside mansion that this like billionaire guy owns. I actually remembered that part being longer than it is. They're like barely there. I think just because the locations of it looked cool. Like when I was little and I was watching this, I kind of wanted to live there, because I thought the building itself looks cool, but like there's this one scene where you get to see the rooms that the kids are supposed to live in, and they look really fun. They have this like charm to them where I thought, man, I want to live there. What else? That part could have even been longer, but you know, at that point it's like, okay, we got to get the movie going. I think it's only like 97 minutes. There's a lot of like wildlife shots where they have to like run through this like forest or whatever. There's a lot of you know, it's like kind of small mountain town sort of vibes for where the kids are going. Sorry, I'm like hearing a weird noise downstairs. I think it's my dog, but I'm gonna go check on her real quick. Okay, that was weird. I thought I heard her walking around. I was just concerned because she's been limping since yesterday, but she's just sitting there. Anyway, but yeah, the locations are cool. There's a lot of like wildlife shots and stuff. Like a lot of this movie takes place outside, or sometimes they end up like the old man, he has a brother that they end up having to go see, but then he isn't home, and he lives in this like cute little cabin or whatever. I actually thought they would have gotten traded off to another adult. I don't know why I misremembered that, but Jason ends up staying with them the whole way, which I thought was kind of nice. Like he starts out as like this kind of grumpy old man that doesn't really want these kids, and then by the end he's attached to them, and I kind of wish that he could have adopted them, because he seemed like a good parental figure, because their backstory, but besides being aliens, is that they end up getting adopted by this family, and the parents pass away, and that's why they end up in the orphanage in the first place. But I mean, at that point in the movie, it's like all the villains are like there trying to get them or whatever, so they kind of have to leave. The ending of this is kind of weird too. Like, I feel like the first half of the movie is really good because it's like kind of the mystery of, oh, they're supposedly in this like ship crash, but you don't know what kind of ship it is. You just assume it's like a boat or something, and they're having to like kind of be on their own for a while, and then sort of have to trust this stranger to get them where they need to go. And then that's kind of cool. And then by the end, it's like, you know, they're gonna be, you know, they're gonna be fine. Like the climax of this movie is that they end up getting in contact with their uncle who's an alien who they believe like drowned at sea or something, but he turns out to be fine. And it's like once they get in contact with the uncle, and the uncle is like, okay, you have to lead the villains towards Witch Mountain or whatever. We have a surprise for them to make sure they don't mess with you anymore. You know at that point, like, okay, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna get to Witch Mountain, especially because ironically, that's kind of when there's the most action in the movie. There's a car chase that includes like a helicopter and stuff. And you think like, oh, this is gonna get kind of exciting, but it's like a very slow, it's not even really like a chase. They're all driving like really slow, and you think from the dialogue like, what are the aliens gonna do to these adults or whatever, but the only thing they do is they make the RV fly, and then they flip over a helicopter while it's flying, so it's forced to, I mean, it is a kids movie, they can't really do like a lot, you know, we can't have like too much violence in here, but it just ends up being kind of boring. And then everyone ends up meeting at Witch Mountain, and the kids end up reuniting with their uncle. And then you find out more with the alien stuff, because the whole thing is like they're in a spaceship that crashes when they're really little. They mention something about not being able to understand what people are saying for years. So I'm assuming like, you know, they have their own alien language or whatever. And they were like separated from their uncle. Not like forcibly, it was that the kids get rescued on like an actual boat, and the uncle they believe drowned, but he ends up being fine. Something to do with sharks. And then you find out the reason they were heading to Earth in the first place is that their planet was dying. That's the thing that makes it weird of having a sequel, is it's explained like their planet was dying, and they had to go find somewhere else to live, so they go to Earth. And the kids, you know, don't remember being aliens. They have like amnesia the entire movie. And it turns out a bunch of other spaceships from the same planet also came to Earth that had kids, and the kids, the only reason the plot kind of really gets started is Tia and Tony end up finding this map to Witch Mountain, because that's where all the alien kids are supposed to go, but like none of them have ever made it. And then, not because they're like dead or anything, but I don't think they found the map or whatever. And it's mentioned that they were the only ones that supposedly survived the crash anyway, so it's like it gets a little grim in that aspect. But then the movie ends with them reunited with their uncle, and they end up leaving in a UFO, and Jason mentions like, hey, since there's these other kids that are supposedly running around, if I find them, I'll make sure to like send them this way or whatever, because he knows to like look for kids with psychic abilities now, especially because he lives so close to like where Witch Mountain is or whatever. So they end up leaving in a UFO. They end up having to abandon their cat, which was kind of, oh yeah, it's not even really like plot important or anything, but the kids end up with this black cat named Winky, and I finally realized at the end of the movie, I'm like, why do they have a black cat? But it's probably also to do with the like the witch theming or whatever. You know, I'm glad that like none of the animals talk or anything. I have like very mixed feelings on like talking animal movies, especially if it's like a live action movie. I feel like it comes off as kind of cringe. I'm glad all the animals, like they talk to the animals, but it's just through like telepathy. The animals never like answer back or anything. They do have a pretty cute cat though, and they end up giving it to Jason, so he gets like a free cat out of all this. But yeah, that's how it ends, and then they leave in a UFO, and you're not told where they go. Like, presumably to go back to their planet or whatever, but, like, their planet was dying. And then it's weird with the sequel, where I read the premise, and it's apparently that for some reason they go to Earth, but, like, on vacation, and then they end up caught by more billionaires and whatever, and they have to, like, rescue Tony or something. But I'm like, then what was the point of, like, all this urgency of getting to Witch Mountain and escaping, like back to their home planet if it was dying. Why don't they just like, I don't know, go somewhere else on Earth or whatever? Because the only reason they even get chased around by these billionaires anyway is they save the life of this like henchman. Oh yeah, Donald Pleasance is in this movie. He was like the only actor I actually recognized from this because he plays Blofeld in one of the James Bond movies. So that's kind of what I know him from. He's sort of like the main villain here, because he's like this henchman to this like billionaire guy named Mr. Bolt. But Mr. Bolt doesn't really have a lot of like a presence in this movie or anything, and it's mostly just Donald Pleasance's character driving around. You see every once in a while trying to find these kids or something. But I feel like he works good as a villain anyway. Like he has this kind of voice that's like very kind of mellow and stuff, but he does look kind of scary. I'm not saying he looks like ugly or anything, but he looks kind of as one of those faces where he looks kind of a little intimidating. So where he like pretends to be the kid's uncle even though he's not, and they know that, but they end up saving his life in a car crash, and that's why he's trying to find out about their abilities and stuff, because his boss is like this kind of superstitious guy who's trying to like get rich or whatever. So it's kind of the kids put themselves in danger, but you know, they're good kids. They don't want this guy to like this random guy to die or whatever. Yeah, so that's pretty much the whole movie. So it hasn't like aged amazingly or anything, but it's like a fun little like sci-fi fantasy like older movie. It's like a comfort movie. I feel like I like it mostly because of nostalgia. I was thinking about that as I was watching. I did kind of skip around through parts of the movie. Like there's some parts that are kind of slow. Like you think like, oh, it's cool, they have to use their abilities to like try and escape these situations, but sometimes it kind of goes on for like a little bit too long. I feel like the pacing could have been better, but I thought the acting it was okay. But yeah, I don't know if I'll watch the sequel or anything, because I don't know why I have that one on DVD too. I don't have the 2009 one with The Rock, but I don't really care about that. But the next movie I'm going to go watch right now is actually Phantom of the Opera. I meant to watch that at first, and then I was looking through my DVDs. I was trying to find The Sound of Music, not to post for October, but it was at the time I'm like recording this, it's like Julie Andrews' 90th birthday, so I wanted to watch it. And then I freaking found out I don't have it on DVD anymore. I don't know what service. I think it would probably be on Disney Plus. I don't know. And then I saw this movie and I was like, oh yeah, sort of has October vibes. This is kind of something, this or like Coraline or something is also kind of fun for me to watch for October. Like kind of balances out the horror movies of like kind of the spooky-ish vibes, but not like scary or whatever. All right, that's that. I'm gonna go watch Phantom of the Opera, but I'd recommend this one anyway. Like it's a little cheesy, but it's kind of fun. Makes me kind of curious and wanting to check out like other older Disney movies. Like I was looking for other movies that Kim Richard was in. For example, she plays Tia, and she's in like a bunch of other like Disney 70s movies. Like there's one with Don Knotts that I thought maybe sounded interesting. I might try to find it. I don't know. All right, bye bye.